What is going on, my beautiful people? In today's video, we're going to be talking about the top 3 things that are critical for a deer to survive on your property and hopefully provide you with a little information that'll help you get them this upcoming deer season. Before we get into these top 3 things, it's important for us to understand a little more information about deer. Now, at a fundamental level of biology, deer are mammals. They give live birth and they produce their own milk. Add a little more depth to that, deer are what's known as a ruminant. Now, what's a ruminant? A ruminant is an animal that's similar to a deer. You got cows that are falling in there, goats, giraffes, antelopes. All of these different animals are ruminants. And what that means is they actually have a 4-chamber stomach and they have hooves. Now, this 4-chamber stomach is used because they cannot break down cellulose. And cellulose is commonly found in plants, which is going to be their main source of food and nutrients. Now, I'm going to give you a brief rundown of how exactly this stomach works, because that's going to help us know why these 3 things are so important and how we can use that to our advantage to hunt deer. So the first area of the stomach that we're going to talk about, I'm going to put a screenshot up on camera for you, is the rumen. And the rumen is the area of the stomach that they're trying to fill up when they're in your food plot. When they're in a food plot, when they're foraging for acorns, their objective is to fill up their rumen. And they can eat very fast. They can typically fill up their rumen in around an hour, 2 hours at most, depending on the forage that they're eating and when the last time they ate was. So the rumen is going to be the big part of their stomach where they're going to be storing this food, and they are just chewing it fast enough to get it swallowed to have it stored in this rumen. Because then what they do is they regurgitate it, and once they regurgitate it, they chew it again. It's called chewing their cud, and they swallow it. When they swallow it, it goes into their reticulum. Their reticulum breaks down the cellulose and makes it a little bit more easy for them to digest. Now, what they'll do then is they regurgitate it again, they chew it again, and they swallow it again, and it goes to the omasum. So the omasum is important because that's where a lot of the food nutrients are going to be absorbed. Once they've absorbed what they can in the omasum, they regurgitate it once again, they can chew it once again, and they swallow it once again, and that's when it goes to the abomasum. And that's when it's fully digested, and that's even when it's broke down and turned into bile that they can then excrement, whether that's through urine or feces. Now, when looking at the 3 core things that the deer are going to need to survive, we're going to start with what I think is going to be the lowest ranked, and that is actually going to be water. So now, why do I have water as number 3? Before you click off the video, let me take a second to explain. By water, I mean water features, water sources. I mean creeks, streams, rivers, lakes, ponds, puddles, everything like that. Everything that is going to be standing water. Now, why do I have that as number 3? The reason I have that as number 3 is because a deer actually needs about 2 to 3 quarts of water a day, and they're only going to get about 10% of that from these water sources of standing water. The main reason that they're going to get such a little percentage of their water from that is because they're going to get a majority of their water from their food. Now, depending on the time of year, a bunch of studies show that deer are going to get 50 to 90% of their water from their food source. Now, both of these are going to go hand in hand when we're looking back at what we just talked about in the biology of a deer and how their stomachs operate. Deer are going to need food and water to constantly sit there and chew and regurgitate and chew and regurgitate their food over and over again to finally be able to process that into those lovely deer pellets and deer urine that we see throughout the season. Another reason we want to keep these 2 things in mind is, again, because deer are prey. They are constantly under fear of being attacked while they're getting food or they're getting water. Like I said, they're prey. They have things that are trying to kill them. Depending on the area you're in, it's coyotes, cougars. When they're younger, you even have hawks, bobcats, everything like that will attack a fawn. Not to mention, you got us and our big stinking selves running around through every bit of their land trying to kill them as well for most of the season. So that's why food and water are number 3 and number 2. Now, the most important thing, in my opinion, that deer need to survive is they need a solid place to live. They need decent shelter. Now, why do I have shelter as my number 1 pick? Well, that reason is because shelter, for much like me and you, we have houses, for example. The shelter provides safety, protection, and it provides an escape from the threat of being attacked, essentially. Deer, like to bed down where they can see everything in front of them and typically smell everything behind them, which we'll go over a little bit later on in this video. So if you can find where a big buck feels his safest, where you can find where his shelter is, you can find his food source, and you can find where he's getting that little bit of water from a water source, you're going to be able to pin him down to a set location, and then it's on you to get in there, set up the right stand location, right access, and hunt the right wind to hopefully get that deer in the back of your truck. Now we're going to have a little bit of a diagram of what that's going to look like right now. So I tried to use the whiteboard to make a little bit more of a diagram of what I would look for when going to the woods. And a lot of what you're going to be looking for is transition areas where you can try to find all of these different habitats together. So as you can see, we have our food plot over here where the deer are going to be filling up that room in. You have the bedding over here where they're going to be going to sit, chew their cud, regurgitate, go through that digestive process, and where they're going to be trying to rest. Say this is a hardwood bottom right here that's going to be a little bit more of a transition area, and you have water over here. Now, throughout these hardwoods, there's still going to be vegetation, as I'm sure most of you hunters know that if you've done any scouting, there's still green vegetation in these woods, as well as in the bedding area. So they're only going to be coming to this food source if it's something that they really want, and they may come to the hardwoods when acorns are dropping or anything like that. Now, usually what that's going to mean is the deer are going to bed where they can see all of this stuff. And hopefully the wind's going to be blowing straight this way. That's my thought. That way they can see what's behind them, or they can smell what's behind them and see what's in front of them. So if you're able to set up in these hardwoods somewhere without spooking deer, you're going to be able to get the ones going to get water, going to get food, or maybe vice versa. So this is going to be a good transition area. And this would be someplace where I would go in, put a mock scrape, put a trail camera, and see, what is roaming around. Now, you don't want to push too far up in these hardwoods because you don't want to spook the deer, because they will stop using a water source or a food area if it's overpressured and they think that it's someplace that they're going to go and die. Let's be honest. I mean, their goal is to survive. But as far as the things that are critical to a deer, I think that pretty much sums it up. They're very similar to humans, and they need shelter, food, and water. It's pretty simple. Keep it simple, stupid. The good old KISS method. But that's pretty much what I would look for. So hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Hopefully you've learned something. Hopefully I didn't bore you to death with our lesson on deer biology and, the 3 things that are critical for their survival. But if you would just give me a little bit more time, let me bore you just a couple more seconds, because we're going to get into the verse of the week. Alright, so today's verse of the week is going to be pretty quick, but it's going to be 1 Peter 5, verses 8 through 9. And it says, "Be alert and of somber mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around you like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour. Resist him. Stand firm in faith, because you know that the family of believers throughout the world is undergoing the same kinds of suffering." I really like this verse because, to me, it really paints a picture of also what the deer are going through that we've just been talking about. A deer is a prey, and think of ourselves as a prey with the roaring lion that is sin, that is Satan, trying to devour us to keep us from our ultimate goal, which is life, everlasting life with God in heaven. And sin is that death that would keep us from him. So put yourself in the place of that deer, smell your wind, check your surroundings, and don't let that sin get you. But hopefully you understood that illustration. And I love every single one of you guys. Thanks for watching. And always remember, when nature calls or God calls, you better answer. Peace out.